A massive problem for many in the Fortnite community is that so many people are cracked out of their minds in creatives hitting insane clips, but then simply can't transfer this skill into game. Now me myself recently, I've managed to learn how to transfer some of my moves in creative into games, and it's helped me to improve my solo and duo cash cup placements and nearly getting my first earnings. In today's video, I'm going to talk you through all these steps in which I've been taking recently to help improve my fighting in game and transfer those skills that I've been practicing in creative into an in-game scenario. If you do find this video helpful, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe. I'm hosting a custom 10k subs only tournament where I'm going to be giving away $100 to you guys, so make sure to subscribe ready for that. Without further ado, let's start talking you through the steps. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is going to be ping and input delay. In creative, you often have zero ping and very minimal input delay. This is because there is less processes going to and from the server, therefore meaning the creative game can run a lot smoother. However, in game there are 100 different players for these servers to handle. Their inputs and outputs mean the game feels a lot more laggy. You may feel this especially in a tournament endgame when lots more things are happening in the game, so therefore the server struggles to cope with it all. Now, how can you combat this and how can you use this to your advantage and get more comfortable for how it feels in game? What you can actually do is switch your region onto a different server where you have 40, 50 ping, maybe even sometimes higher. I wouldn't recommend going over 100 ping as at that point it's not in-game realistic, but for me, I'm on EU. Yes, we don't have one extremely close, but NA East is around about 70 ping for me, so therefore it means that I can practice free building and mechanics on 70 ping and a little bit of fighting. Now, the reason behind this is because when it happens in game and when the game there might be a little bit of input delay or when the game feels a bit more laggy, you therefore will be more comfortable with it when it happens in game because you practice this regularly in creative. Just a little tip to help you get more comfortable with how the game actually feels when you're in a ranked or tournament game, for example. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how your FPS can flutter in game, again due to more things going on in the lobby. In creative, you tend to run a lot higher FPS than you do in game, and that is simply because there are a lot more stuff for your PC to process, and again that's going on in a game scenario, which makes it more difficult for the server to continue outputting at a higher FPS. Now, what does this mean for us as the players? Well, how we can practice this is using creative mats such as Forever Zone Wars in order to practice our endgame and our fighting practice, but on a lower FPS. What you could do, for example, if you have a PC that could run 240 or even above 180 FPS, is you could start off trying to drop a nuke on 60 FPS, and again that will allow you to practice on a lower FPS. Then what you can do is you can move it up to 120 FPS, 144, 165, etc, continuing to drop nukes on each of these FPS individual stutters. So what you then know is that you are a lot more confident in game when your FPS drops, so you can still fight confidently. But the main thing is also because you'll feel very comfortable and you won't really notice those FPS drops in a mid-fight, for example, especially if you have practiced on a lower FPS. Just a little tip so you guys can be a lot more comfortable when playing in game. My next point is often that the opponents you play will play very different in creative to how they will play in game. Now, specifically, there isn't a great way to combat this, but the reason behind it is because most people in creative are a lot more relaxed and therefore confident, meaning they're using as much of their mechanics as they can to try and pull off some insane fights and also clips. Whereas in a game scenario, people are a lot more nervous when they're playing because if you die, you don't simply just respawn or go into the next round like you do in creative. And how you can use this to your advantage is stop worrying about it dying in a game scenario and just start believing in your mechanics and playing confident. Often you can take on a player of your skill or even a player who maybe a little bit mechanically better, but if they are a non-confident player and you're a confident player, you can take advantage of that and you can wipe them out of the lobby. Just a little mentality thing which can really help you when trying to push for extra kills in your ranked or tournament games. Moving on from there, I feel it's important to talk about cash cup placements and obviously your ranked progress. Now, a lot of people firstly play ranked with the mindset of solely going for that goal of Unreal or maybe moving up to that next rank. Now, what this actually does to your gameplay is it makes you a lot more nervous because you know that if you die, for example, you will lose percentage, and therefore you play a lot more scared and allow a more confident player, like we talked in the last point, to take advantage of you. Now, I need you to stop thinking about your ranked progress or your cash cup placements in the short term because that is pretty much irrelevant. Unless you're placing really highly and making earnings, your cash cup placements, whether they're top 5k, 10k, 20k, really does not matter. What you have to think about is focusing on the fact that right now, if you are pushing people, forget about your ranked progress. What you are doing is you're practicing your fighting and you're practicing your mechanics in the short term. Then, if we can improve our mechanics and our fighting in the short term, we can then W key more, which will improve our long-term goal. well. So you have to think screw the short term and work towards that long term goal of being able to achieve better cash cup placements, better rank placements. Maybe you're not qualifying for solo finals and you want to qualify for solo cash cup finals. Again, you have to make the sacrifice in the short term for your longer term benefit. In terms of the best form of practice outside of in-game scenarios, so this could be in creative, for example, because creative can be used to our advantage to help practice our in-game fights, but only if you're playing the right creative maps. Like I said, I've already recommended Forever Zone Wars for that high intensity practice where you don't have to wait for another game to start and you can respawn immediately. But another fighting practice map which I like to play is Speed Realistic X Ranked. Now the reason why is because you can play multiple players here. Each game is a first to 3 scenario, and then after that you go back into a sort of hub where you can play against other players. This means you're going to be able to play against a bunch of different playstyles in a short time period, and therefore you can adapt and fight equally to each individual player. Now, the key thing about practicing in this realistic map is that you want to learn to end fights quickly. Now, the reason why is because in-game you have them third-party scenarios which can't be replicated in creative. So you want to be trying to end these creative fights as quick as possible and making sure that you're getting into the habit of completely blocking off angles or boxing up when you're pushing your player in creative, because that could affect you in-game from a third party. So just making sure you're getting into the habit of doing that, so when the scenario happens in-game, you're a lot more prepared. Moving on from that then, I also want to talk about VOD reviewing your deaths in ranked or cash cups. Now, it's important that you take ownership with yourself as a player about why you have died and what mistake you as a player made which put you in that scenario. Pretty much, unless you got headshot sniped, you will have made a mistake which will have led to your death. So it's important that you go back into replay mode and check over this to try and find where you could have improved or what you could have done differently, as again this builds muscle memory which you can then use to avoid making these mistakes again in the future. Now again, my next point is pretty key to a point which I mentioned earlier, which is making sure you're playing aggressive in ranked. Once you can start dropping 10 to 15 kill plus games in solo ranked, especially once you get to that higher rank of champion and unreal, you're then playing up against good players and proving to yourself that you are a good fighter. Now what this will do is actually make you believe in yourself and your fighting ability, and this will then allow you to transfer the skill from ranked over into tournament, for example. But it's key that in the short term, at the moment, we are pushing people in ranked and we're trying as hard as we can to W key and just build up our fighting practice. The players you play in ranked, in champion and unreal rank are often the players which you play in the tournaments. Every single player which plays in tournaments also plays in ranked, so therefore you're playing against the same collective pool of players. Therefore meaning that if you can drop a 10 to 15 kill in solo unreal ranked, it's likely that you can use that skill and replicate it in a solo victory cash cup, which could be the difference in you qualifying to finals and not. But overall, being more confident when fighting, and you don't have to brainlessly W key, but being more confident when fighting maybe a smart fight on the dead side of zone and winning that fight successfully and quickly will then transfer that skill over into tournaments and make you overall a more successful player, especially in the long term when you start to see those placement results in a few months time. It's all about focusing and working hard now so you guys can see the results in a few months. Thank you very much for watching until this part of the video. I really hope you have enjoyed and that these tips do help you out. Make sure to leave me a comment down below letting me know your best placement in a tournament so far, so you can look back on it in a few months time and say you've improved. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.